Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Thursday the 16th of May. So, as ever, starts off with the euro dollar. Well, the euro dollar fouled, as I pointed out yesterday, had a bearish pivot swing and it continued to sell off, so looked weak. Now, recovered some of those losses later, and we're sitting there with a bit of a doji now. So, question I guess is, well, you could simply put the trend line over this time frame and say, well, there's the line in the sand. Is it continuing in a upward channel, or are we going to see a break of this sort of level, and it's continuing this larger downward channel, which would see it potentially come back to those lows? Well, we'll wait to see for that, but for short term it's consolidating. You can see a real consolidated 4-hourly bars there, which doesn't make a simple cause or influence there, but however, I am simply making it very, very simple and looking at this, and there's a trend line running across the lows here. It's just running into 8 o'clock as I record this now. It may just break this initially. Often happens. You've got to be really careful around the 8 o'clock time. You get the fake outs, and it's in a tight old range here, probably a rising channel, as you can probably see, and it could just fake out this. It may just come back to these lows from 2 o'clock in the morning there. If it breaks this and closes, it's got a reasonable run down towards the S1, yesterday's lows, which would be a decent target. To the upside, well, maybe if it can, I mean, it's a bearish crossover on the moving averages, if you like that sort of thing. If it can break that bearish crossover and start pushing up, well, of course, we got yesterday's highs aren't too far adrift into the R1, so there's certainly a trade at the moment. It looks, to me, the bigger picture is still on the soft side there, so, and fundamentally it's very flawed. So there we are. That's the euro dollar. Pound dollar, well, it's not liking all this nonsense going on about Brexit, really, and I mean, although fundamentally it's a lot more stronger than Europe as a whole, with the data that's coming out, it's still rolling over. Now, where to? Well, just consolidation phase here, it looks like, and well, we could see this break and continue running down. My preference, we've missed a pivot the last couple of days, preference would be to see a rally back into that, to be shorting. I'm a bit wary of just selling it at this level, but it may be the case. We ended up selling it short of the pivot yesterday, but we'll see. It did have a decent old chunk down yesterday, and well, it's being sold at the moment, and could continue in that vogue, so we'll see. Dollar yen. Yeah, well, sorry, on the pound at the moment, technically there isn't anything that looks really bullish to me, so there's only that bearish look, but I would like to see it pull up, as I said. Dollar yen, well, dollar yen's consolidating here. It seems risk on, risk off. It varies by the day here, and it's into a tight range here, and that we know when it starts ranging and getting tight, at some point it will break, and you can see, probably make out there's a little old wedge sitting on here now. Now, in general circumstances, this would be a bearish wedge as it's in the downward trend, and you'd expect to break the lows. If it was to break upwards and push upwards, we'd see it running into that 4-hourly 50. But in the current state of play, my preference would be still to the downside technically. Fundamentally, it's flawed, but another flawed currency. But there we are. Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar, well, we're seeing selling off here, and it's continued selling off this morning. It's pretty much done the same range as it did the whole of yesterday already, and it did that, and it didn't really move. It didn't have a great deal of movement for large parts of yesterday, and it's looking pretty much the same today. It's just chopped along yesterday, a bit like the euro in terms of selling off, then pulling back a little bit, but all the same, it's had its spike down there. Employment change was okay, but the unemployment rate increased from 5% to 5.2, so slightly higher unemployment, maybe a blip there, but the market's taken to it. It's really recovered from that employment number, and it's back into its basis there. In fact, the employment change on month was positive by nearly double expectation, so it wasn't as bad as it appears there. And as I said, it could be just a blip, but for now it is running south. I mean, it's more of a position trade. If you're looking at the Aussie dollar for the south side. Canadian dollar, well, Canadian dollar, it's actually shown some form of strength in the last couple of days, but still tight in this tight old range. Look at the moment, it looks like it could even come back down towards that monthly pivot. It's worked itself out of being one of the weaker pairs to, or it's actually a middling pair, but making itself a case for being slightly stronger against the US dollar. That 4 hourly 200 looks inviting with just range trading really. Looking at these prior lows, somewhere around that just maybe short of that 400 looks inviting. Nothing else much there on there. Untouched daily pivot, well, maybe it would run back to that, but it's on its way. Preference is really still to the downside on this at the moment, but again, it's one of those choppy, and as I say, it's a range trade. We'll have a look at the S&Ps. S&Ps gave us a few points yesterday. Bullish day the previous day, eventually managed to push itself back up. Yesterday, well, it sold off initially through the London session before the cash market opened, and it recovered from that. It bounced off, come off this 4 hourly 500. I wondered if it was going to break it, come back and retest it, but no. There was a buying coming in yesterday, and that may have been helped by Trump-like comments and talks about going back to talk to the Chinese. So anyway, it did the trick and pushed back up there. Today it's sitting on its pivot here. I would be looking maybe an earlier sell, but potentially off a break of the lows. Just need to be a bit careful because it may just walk out of this sidewards, but it may be a better trend line across the more recent lows there. But that would be a little bit more bearish. But just look at the price action here. We've got a higher low in here, and two higher highs, higher low. So it does look like, well, today we might see that R1 hit. It may continue to push its way up. There's talks of Chinese a delegation going to China, if not next week, the week after. So there's potential still sitting there. So that's where we are. Erring on the more bullish side in the short term here at the moment, potentially with a higher low in there, price action wise. Have a great day. Before I do that, news. There isn't a lot of news today. A bit of European data. 9:15, we've got the German Buber president speaking. He can move the euro pretty well. He has, can have an influence on the euro. I'm just looking through the list here. German in 1:30, we've got some building permits, etc. Manufacturing and sales, Canada. And 4:15 Canadian bank governor speaking. So we've got then some FOMC, MPC speakers later on, about 5:15, quite late in our session, so probably not to affect our trading today, but are a few speakers. That's it for me. Have a great one. Bye for now.